Hey, it's David Bowman, keeping it real. Just wanted to kind of talk a little bit more about human performance tools. The last time we talked about self-checking, questioning attitude, the differences in there between those two. But I want to talk about verification practices. Now, a lot of people will teach peer checking, which is one we like to teach in our core 4 materials. But they'll also include second check. They'll include independent verification and concurrent verification. Now, all forms of this are similar. But let me just kind of briefly talk about the differences. So if you think about a peer check, that means right now an in-action second check of you and I are working together. We're about to open a valve, and I say, hey, I'm going to open this valve. We read the tag. We maybe have a checklist, or we have a procedure in our hand, and we'll verify that step and the procedure together. And then before we take the action, we both agree that's the right thing to do. It's almost like two self-checks, but we're doing it simultaneously together. In process, second check. And then we take the action and step back and say, did we get what we wanted? That's a little bit different than a concurrent verification, whereas maybe I go into a valve pit and I go open a valve and I want to verify that it's open, so I'll give it to another person to go concurrently verify, yeah, I agree that valve is open. So it's out of process, it's already happened, but it's still a good way to maintain and verify that a component is in a situation you want it to be in or in a position you want it to be in. And then the third one, and probably the most, I say regulation-driven one, would be independent verification, where I have to have a valve that's open, like let's say fire water, supplying a fire water pump, that we have to verify it's open for a sprinkler system or something like that. I would go in, I would still use self-checking, I still may use a peer check, but I may seal this valve with a plastic tag or some kind of a tag to maintain it open, but then have an independent person that's separated by time and distance that would come in after the fact and verify truly that valve is open and in the open condition, and then sign that as a legal statement saying yes, that valve has been secured into that one position. So independent verification and peer check are two different things, and also concurrent verification. So I hear people get those confused sometimes, and I wanted to keep it simple, keeping it real with using some real life scenarios. And then the last one is second check. And a second check really is nothing more than a peer check. You can look at a peer check as an in-process second check, like we talked about, or in-process peer check of me doing something to a component. But a second check is me stepping back and saying, okay, do you agree this is what I'm going to do? You look at it by yourself and then come and tell me, should we do that? So it's a little bit different than concurrent verification, a little bit different than peer check. It's kind of in between those two. It's certainly not an independent verification because we are in a process together. And then it's not a peer check because it's not done simultaneously while I'm about to do something. It's me stepping out of the way, you going in, second checking, yeah, that is the valve you're going to open, and then we go and open that valve. So I hope that helped. I wanted to kind of clarify a little bit in verification practices. A lot of times companies will, when they're new into human performance, they'll roll all these out into one big thing and say, okay, now go do those things. Very, very difficult if you don't lay it out fresh, if lay it out right, and make sure people have the understanding and ability to go use it and do it the way it's designed to be used. They all have their place. They all mean something. And they all work. It just depends on what part of the process you're in. So I encourage you to look at that, study this film a little bit. If you're going to roll these kind of things out, or this video, study this video, and understand there's a difference between a peer check, a second check, a concurrent verification, and an independent verification. A lot of stuff to talk about, a lot of things to remember, but you know what? At the end of the day, if you really don't want to make a mistake, that's the kind of stuff we want to do. Use our tools. They work. Again, hate to talk too much about tools because that's such a small part of human performance, but it's such an important part. So reducing error frequency, we got to use our tools. Verification practices are great to be used. Speaking of verification, that guy just ran a stop sign right in front of my office. Unbelievable, on a motorcycle. So anyway, watch out for stop signs. Self-check, question and attitude. And if you got somebody riding with you, get them to peer check you so you don't run a stop sign. Have a great day. Look forward to talking to you again.